and welcome to the Real Biz Life Chronicles, where we discuss all things business, branding, and life. I'm your host, Tracy Fryer. My guest today is a lady who always has so much to give, regardless of where she may be at. She is the founder of VLM Training and Coaching Specialist. And she may not actually know this, but she was the first person to have me as a guest on her podcast. And I think it's probably one of the reasons I'm sitting here today with my own podcast. So, Vicki Main, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Tracy. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I loved recording the podcast with you as a guest. You were so eloquent, and I'm delighted that you're doing it yourself now. And so that's brilliant news. And I've listened to a few of your guests on the show and your podcasts, and I'm really, really impressed. So well done, you.
Oh, thank you, Vicki. Like I say, you were the first person to invite me to your show. And I was nervous as, oh my gosh, I think I even ran through the question set with my advisor. I was like, oh my goodness. But thank you so much.
Pleasure.
I'm glad. So Vicki is coming to us live from the UK. We connected when Vicki lived in Perth. Yes. We met at was it one of Eleanor's, I think it was a high tea at sea, wasn't it?
It was a sailing trip. And we were with an amazing group of women, and Eleanor organised it, and Eleanor Chapel in Perth. And it was a beautiful day. I don't think we went to Rottnest Island. It was, what was the small island? Was it Green Island? Garden Island, which is an amazing place. And we swam with seals, and it was just an incredible day. So I think one of those sailing trips is long overdue.
Oh, agreed. I think that was like 2 or 3 years ago already now.
It was, yeah. Well, I've actually been back in the UK now, officially 2 years. And although I've been back to Perth a few times as well, because I'm still working a lot with us Aussie clients, and I'm an Australian citizen as well. So I like to base myself and work between the two countries. So that's
fantastic.
That's what I'm doing now.
And Vicki, walk us through. I know you recently published a book. How is that going?
Yeah, well, the book kind of came from ideas. I put them on paper, and it started the journey 2.5 years ago when I was living full time in Perth, and I sketched it out on a whiteboard, and it's actually called The Momentum Mindset.
Yes.
And this came from, I guess, a few years worth of coaching and training and teaching and working with people. And I was seeing, especially coaching on the journey, I was seeing a few gold nuggets of information, but also pain points that my coaching clients were having. And there were some similarities along the way. So I started putting together this framework in my mind and mapped this out. And then the framework actually became the book, and the book's journey, it started, as I say, 2.5 years ago. I didn't actually start writing the book until I came to the UK officially. And the reason I was in the UK in the first place was because my stepdad was poorly. So I came back to be with my mum and stepdad. And sadly, he's passed away now. But from that experience, I took some time out. I exited my previous company, and I started thinking about what's next for me on the journey. And the book evolved, and the book came along the way with me. And I guess the book wouldn't have been written if it wasn't for my partner, Will, at the time, Will King. He encouraged me to put pen to paper and write it, and I did. And weirdly, I got to about 20,000 words. And then I met a guy called Jonathan Bean, who's a writer at a party on the Isle of Wight. And then we met, we started working together, and he then became a co-author with me. And he brought a real masculine touch to the book, but also he's an incredible, inspiring person in his own right. Like, he's ran over 30 marathons. He's got this really amazing mindset, very different to me in terms of personalities, but he's an exceptional writer. And he then started writing, and it came from there. So the book was born from there. And we went on this self-publishing journey because we did look to get a book deal, and it was taking so long. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to publish it ourselves. So we self-funded it, got it out there. And then once the book was written and published and we did the unboxing, we then did 5 events across the UK four events in the UK, Newcastle, London, Isle of Wight and Southampton initially. And then I came to Perth, and we did a big book launch in Perth, Western Australia last year. So in terms of your question about how it's doing now, well, we've sold around 350 copies. I've had some amazing feedback saying that the book has really helped people take action and inspire them to maybe change even a small thing in their life or cascade into other areas. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to inspire one person from the book, and it's led to this journey, and it's still ongoing. So I sell them on our website, and it's still ongoing. It's a talk of conversation sometimes at dinner parties, and I'm thinking about my second book now. So it's a journey.
Fabulous.
I do believe everybody has one book in them to write.
I love that. And Vicki, walk us through, what does that book journey look like? Because I know you said it took 2.5 years. So it kind of started. Do you mind to walk us through what that journey was like?
Yeah, do you know what? It was really a great learning curve for me too, because although I've got my teaching degree, I've worked in academia, and I've marked assignments for years, and I've helped people with their own writing journey. When it came to actually thinking about self-publishing, obviously, I had never done it before. So I went on this big learning journey myself. And I then started to think about well, the publishing industry needs to be disrupted. So I started coming up with these business ideas and thinking about it. But then actually it took a different take. And I then started to do some, because I love teaching, I started to do some online courses and help people and walk them through the framework of how to self-publish a book. So I was doing that for a little while. But it did bring up some feelings and evoke some feelings of, I wouldn't say like full-on imposter syndrome, but I did start to question and think, well, who's going to read this? Who's going to buy this? And I wanted to, so I kind of had to, when I was getting those feelings, I had to kind of put those to one side and minimize them and go, you know what? I'll write it from a practical point of view. I'll make it interesting. I'll make it fun. Jonathan was writing it with me as well. So I kind of minimized those feelings of self-doubt if they came up. And actually, I talk about self-doubt in the book. So it was almost like, weirdly, I was writing about it. And then I was kind of, because I was doing something new, I was experiencing these feelings that I hadn't felt for a long time, because obviously I've had a well-established career. So it was a really interesting journey. I loved the coming up with the ideas and the framework. And the writing, sometimes I got writer's block, so I would dictate instead of writing, and that was easier. Then I would use software to put it all together. And I love the editing process. I really enjoyed that, like asking myself, so what? And then Jonathan and I would use a Google Doc and we edited it. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times I ended up printing it off and systematically going through and checking for spelling errors. And I actually had my wonderful teaching friends in the northeast of England. They did proofread it and also gave me some feedback from their editorial teaching experience. So it was such a great journey. And if anybody is interested in hearing more, please get them to connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to share what I did. Yeah.
Awesome. We'll definitely pop your LinkedIn and your book link as well, all in the show notes too.
Yeah. Thank you.
And Vicki, why do you think it is that so many of us struggle with imposter syndrome, or we have all the self-doubt that bubbles up, especially when we are doing something that pushes us completely outside our comfort zone? Why do you think it is that all those feelings come up?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think often we are conditioned as humans to possibly compare ourselves with others, which is a really dangerous thing, because comparison is the thief of joy. So often I don't do that necessarily myself now, because I stay in my own lane. I focus on, being a better version of myself. But I think often people do focus on comparing themselves to others, and then you feel really crap about if you start comparing yourself to others. But the thing is, what you see in public is not necessarily what personally people are like, or also what's going on in their lives. If someone has a really fancy LinkedIn profile and it looks like they're smashing it on all their socials, it doesn't mean to say that they're they're having a great time in their own personal life, or they're having a great time generally speaking. They might have their own stuff going on that's not great. But I guess so the comparison is one of the things I think which can kick in imposter. Also the self-doubt, not believing that you're good enough. I think daily rituals, I'm a big fan of creating daily rituals in your life. And I know we talked about this on the podcast we did together.
Yes,
and
we did.
About starting your day with mindfulness, gratitude. If you start to, also what we say can translate and become reality. So if we're constantly thinking negative thoughts, we're thinking the negative thoughts, we're talking negative thoughts, it will become a negative environment that you're in, or a negative life. So I guess it's about minimizing those thoughts and really just being the best version of yourself so that you can be the best version for everyone else as well. So, but yeah, I think imposter syndrome, it's not just one thing. There's a myriad of things that actually can really impact that. There's a great book actually by Dr. Dr. Said.
Okay.
It'll come to me. I might be able to remember it later. But
Yeah,
she
of
talks
course.
about
That's
5
fine.
areas of imposter syndrome, and one of them, for example, is being a superwoman, where we actually we attempt to do everything ourselves without delegating because we feel we have to. And I know in my early career that was something that happened to me as well. But the thing is, you just get stressed and you get overwhelmed and inundated. And as you know, as a business owner, one of the secrets to having a successful business is delegating, but also hiring people who are better than you and doing the great work and letting them get on with it. You know, that's something I've found as well. And when you have an amazing team around you, how could you fail? You know, flourish.
Definitely.
Flourish.
Yeah. And I think something you've touched on there, it's almost, as business owners, we do think we can do everything ourselves. And it's sometimes hard to swallow that there might be someone out there who can actually do it better than us. But I've embraced this and oh my goodness, it has changed my business. Like it has leveled everything up. And it's also freed up more of my time to do the business development side of things because I'm not having to sort of, chase a team member for something or having to give them that sort of very guided journey, shall we say. Into doing something, and also the ideas that they generate as well. Like it's really so good to embrace it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've got an amazing team, and everybody who I've spoken to within your team is just absolutely amazing and incredible people. So well done you for hiring great talent.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Vicki. Yes, we have had the privilege of working with you on your branding and your book cover, and you're an absolute pleasure to work with as well.
Thank you very much.
Now, Vicki, walk us through. I know you've had quite a varied and exciting career. I think DJ falls under there somewhere. Walk us through. How did that happen?
Well, I'll try and keep it succinct. When I was younger, when I grew up, I wanted to do 3 things. Well, actually 4, but I'll explain. I wanted to be a DJ. I love music and I love dancing. I think it just brings so much joy to people's lives. So DJing has always been something I've wanted to do. Teaching, I love inspiring and I love education. I love learning new things. I'm a lifelong learner too. And also entrepreneurship. As a young person, I was always thinking about ideas and always selling stuff and creating ideas and concepts, and like I'm sure you can relate. And
yes, you can.
and the last one I think as well was I wanted to be a vet, but I think that's kind of past now. But I guess it was my love for animals, and as you know, you're a doggy mama as well, and I am too. I love animals, and I think when you're surrounded by animals, I think you kind of go wrong. But so those 4 things I wanted to do, and I guess now I'm in my 40s. I've been a DJ. That came from one day I decided before a significant birthday, I thought, I know, I'll go out and spend $10,000 on Aussie, decks and equipment. And then 2 weeks later, randomly, I bought all the equipment. And then I ended up randomly with a gig at the Joondalup Resort for 150 people. I was already emceeing the event, but then I DJ'd for them. And then I got 3 more gigs from that night, and it just snowballed. So I was doing that while I was a director of my previous business, a training education consultancy. So I was sort of training and coaching by day and DJing by night. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I did some of the Women in Technology WA Awards. I did that for about 4 or 5 years. I loved that. And, the technology, various of the startup awards, I worked a lot with Space Cubed on St. George's Terrace and did a lot of their gigs. And I just loved it. I love meeting people. I loved seeing people have fun on the dance floor and just having a brilliant time. I absolutely loved it. So did that. When I moved back to the UK, I decided to sort of hang up my headphones for a little while. I do have decks in the UK, but I don't do it professionally now, just more for fun. But interestingly, when my stepfather passed away, my love for music, I think and I'm not going to go too deep in this, but I stopped listening to music as much because I was grieving.
Yes.
But I'm getting back into it now, I guess. But I think so. Yeah, teaching. I've been an educator for years. I qualified in 2008 in the UK, and that led me to have an amazing career. I worked at Edith Cowan University. I worked at Curtin University for a while, working with people and helping them with their entrepreneurial goals, helping them scale their businesses, and also teaching some IT as well at one point. So I guess my career has always been, the thread along it has always been, I've done something I've actually loved and I'm passionate about. And that for me has always been like, I wouldn't necessarily work in a role or do a job that I didn't like. You know, I mean, if the people were great, I'd probably be able to stick it out for a while and have the social element. But if it wasn't filling my heart, filling my cup up and giving me the purpose and passion to help others, I couldn't do it, Tracy. I don't know about you, but I just couldn't do it.
Same.
And it would just slowly make me feel sad in time, and I'd have to get out and do whatever I wanted to do. In fact, incidentally, I was made redundant when I lived in Australia. It came out of the blue, actually, but these things happen, and that led me to set up my first company. And I did that for 3 years, and it was pretty successful. We scaled it nationally and worked with some amazing people. So, but when I came back to the UK after the death of my stepfather, I was just sort of thinking, where do I go from here? But then I started working again with Aussie clients, and that's how my business was born from there. So, but who knows what the future holds? I love sailing. I've been doing that quite a lot recently. My passion for sailing's been, I've done that a lot, and who knows? I love travel as well. So, who knows what I'll do next?
Yes, and it's great. I love how you kind of just go with the flow as well. You know, set caution to the wind and go with it. You don't kind of second guess it too much, which I know me, I'll second guess things or kind of question things, but it seems you just go with it, which is great.
One thing I've acknowledged about myself is I'm quite decisive. And once I make up my decision, I mean, I will analyze the risks. Like if it's, financially, I'll look at the behind the scenes, and it might look like to everybody else I've made a very quick decision, but that decision might have been percolating for 6 months. But once I make up my mind up, I am quite decisive, and I just go, you know what, feel the fear and do it anyway and take action. I think and you'll have seen this, there's been reports of people who've worked with people in, say, care homes. And one of the biggest things that people who are sort of lying on their, as they pass away, it's about, not doing things that they love and taking the risk. And we're on this earth for a very short period of time. So you've got to, life's precious. So, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, I think I know. Is it the four requests or something of, I think someone did a study and people on the deathbed, and there was 4 or 5 things that came up, and it's really, I can't think of it now, but again, if I find, I'll put in the show notes. It's really like, it puts things into perspective, because I think sometimes we almost get on this hamster wheel and we just go without actually realizing, you've only got a short amount of time. And my mom, she always said after 21, it goes so fast. I thought, yeah, sure it does. Oh my gosh, it does. It goes so fast.
It does. I mean, it absolutely does. And I think when I moved to Australia, I think I was 32 by then, and my kids were sort of still young, and I didn't look back. And it was the best experience. I lived there full time for 10 years. I got to visit some beautiful countries like Bali. I know everybody who's listening to this in Perth goes like, so what? Everybody goes to Bali like 5 times a year. But I love Bali. I've traveled quite a lot around Western Australia and across Australia. Been to Fiji, loved that, and really traveled around. There's still more Southeast Asia I'd love to go to, and Japan's on the list as well. But I guess my love for passion since I moved to Australia, it really broadened my horizons. And I know you have with your career in travel as well in the past. But just that's something as well that I'm really passionate about travel. And I think meeting new people from new cultures and experiencing the world it's within your reach for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I'm a big fan of traveling. It's really shaped me, I think, as a person, as a creative. And we're busy renovating at the moment. I've been saying, we need to go on a trip,
Oh, I know. I mean, I've been looking to go on 3 holidays so far this year, so I can't complain.
Oh, awesome. Oh, you're lucky.
But I do, and I'm already thinking, where am I going next? And thinking about the next one. But I'm kind of, I guess it's what fills your cup up. And if you want to renovate your home, have a beautiful home, you can do that as well, because your home's yourself, where your palace, where you live, and and you've got to have the home comforts as well. So it's definitely a balance for sure.
Also, yeah. And I think being in the UK, you're kind of so central to everything as well. Everything's not that sort of far away.
Yeah, well, you say that, but interestingly, I mean, I was doing some work in Malta with clients in November last year, and I was on the Isle of Wight, and I had to travel to, I think it was Stansted Airport, and you get a ferry, then you get the train, and then another train to Stansted. In fact, I think it was 3 trains. So, but it's great when the infrastructure and the trains are working. But I have experienced since I've been back in the UK, the trains aren't as reliable as they used to be, just because of strikes and everything else that's going on. And, you know, you've just got to work your travel around it. But I tend to, if I can, I would fly, like if I'm in the Northeast at the moment, I'd probably fly where I could just to, I mean, I don't fly that often, so my carbon footprint isn't huge, but I would say the trains aren't necessarily great for getting around. But you kind of, let's stop you. The UK, yes, I agree. It is a hub for Europe, the USA, various places. So for sure. I think somewhere like Dubai, I was considering this the other day, thinking, I wonder what Dubai would be like to live in, because that's kind of the halfway point, or like somewhere in the Middle East between Australia and Europe and the UK. So that might be something I might do next. Who knows?
Yeah, and it's a beautiful city. I think I watched Dubai Bling when I have to step away from work and binge TV. I was like, oh my gosh, it's stunning. And they've got, you know, these big rocks on their fingers and looks so glamorous.
Well, I know you've got a jewelry design business, so that floats your boat. But I don't know. I think for me it would be more the shorter distance to travel back to Perth. So because it's a long way. People are put off by it. But you know, having done it several times now, within 24 hours of flying, you just kind of get used to it, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And Vicki, walk us through your podcast, and I know your business as well. Can you give us more insight into that, please?
Yeah, sure. So the podcast kind of was I guess it was a marketing strategy, but actually it became something that I really love to do. I absolutely love interviewing people. I've got 2 new episodes coming out in the next couple of weeks. And everybody who's been on the show has been absolutely awesome. And after the podcast finished, we can continue chatting. And for me, interviewing them, they all come up with different words of wisdom, anecdotes, and things that their lives, so like sharing life stories and their business journeys, and really sharing things about themselves that people might not know as well, and some tough times as well. And it's really about becoming unstuck and helping you get through adversity and helping people to take action, which kind of follows the thread with the book as well. So the podcast came at the start. I started doing it, and then in fact some of the podcast episodes and the quotes were featured in the book. So those were things that were add-ons, and I know when I've had previous businesses, those things can take you away from revenue generating activities. So that's something that, you know, if you're starting a business, you know, writing a book and a podcast might not be the first thing that you tackle, because let's face it, that's going to take your time away from things that revenue generating activities. But I did that this time, and I had clients that I had anyway. So, but in terms of my business and my core offering, so I do what I do well. And that's training, working with teams, working with leaders, helping them and their teams create, depends where they are. Like it might be that I work with them on a strategic project and helping them build, or they might have a business that's been going for 3 years and they want to scale it further. So I'll help them with that. They might want to work on, so I'm working with a client in the UK at the moment who wants some leadership development with their team. So I'm working with them, and I'm using a tool called the Entrepreneurial Mindset Profile, which I'm a master practitioner in the profile tool. And what it is, it actually measures 14 skills and attributes, which actually it's come from academic research in the US with Eckerd College. So I've done about 3,000 of these already, and feedback to 3,000 people. I think, Tracy, we might have done yours a few years back.
I'm one of them. Yeah, it was very interesting. Really,
so I
really
based my
interesting.
business model around the entrepreneurial mindset profile as well, as a tool, as a diagnostic tool. And then I would design training programs and also coaching, one-on-one or group coaching. So although there are lots of coaches and trainers out there doing some amazing things, I think for me, it's about the people side of the business that I really focus on. And I work with HR teams. I've also done a lot of facilitation and keynote and guest note speaking, because I do that anyway. So I've been drafted in to do some stakeholder engagement opportunities in the UK. I did it in Western Australia. There was a few stakeholder engagement activities. But I guess it's working with people and getting the best out of them. So there's been a variety of projects that I've worked on. On my website, I haven't shared the depth and breadth of the stuff I've been working on because some of it is confidential. You know, some clients come to me because their business there's some real pain points in the business that they want me to help them with. And I'm kind of like the silent one behind the scenes, helping them with some things there. But again, I've worked with startup companies or pre-startup who want to look at their mindset first and then help them where they go from there. So I've had a lot of depth and breadth experience in training various subject areas. I've done training around branding, marketing, project management, lean Six Sigma, that sort of stuff, loads of stuff like that. And yeah, I guess the focus around training and coaching is mainly what I've been doing, but I have got a really big interest in technology as well, and using technology to help with speeding things up, but also to make our lives easier as well.
Yes. And Vicki, speaking of which, what are, I guess, the top 3 pain points that you see business owners have? And then I guess what's the strategy that you give them thereafter?
Well, it depends on the person. So it's sort of, it would be, there's a myriad of things, but I think the first thing would be a lot of the issues come from mindset. So for example, if someone has the mindset and the propensity that they can't, if they feel that, say, if they have a really unhealthy relationship with, say, money, right? I'll give you an example. And I'll not mention any names here, but this has been something that I've seen in the past. If they believe that bringing in lots of money and working with clients and offering an amazing service, but if they see it as being something that they don't feel that they deserve, or they don't feel that, or maybe it's a mindset around the more money someone has, it becomes a negative connotation. They're not going to attract more clients in, or the better clients. I think some people have, so that's one example with mindset. Other people's pain points might be that they might have a brilliant idea, and it might be, but they just don't know how to market or sell their idea. So, but you can bring in professionals to help with that as well. And you can do lots of courses, but it depends. You might be the ideas person and come up with this amazing technology or whatever it is, but you might actually need to hire a BD or marketing salesperson to come in and help to actually get the message out there. And you're great with, I know you've got a branding workshop coming up online soon.
Yes.
Or maybe you've got that coming up and talking about branding. And I'm sure you'll highlight the difference between branding and marketing. And in actual fact, what I've found is a lot of people spend so much time on their branding and they don't spend enough time on their marketing. So you can have this amazing brand, but you don't sell it or you don't market it to anybody. So, and the more time you spend on a brand, I mean, let's face it, if you're building a company, you might rebrand in 3 to 5 years anyway. So a brand is important, and it is getting the message and the tone and everything there. But if you don't share it with anybody, nobody's going to know about your brand.
No, precisely. No one's going to see it.
Probably 80% of what you should be doing in the early stages. But that's my view on it anyway. And I guess, so the third thing I would say, excuse me, would be, one of the things, it's having that, I wouldn't say work-life balance, but I think a lot of people, if they start their business and think they have to do everything, like, they will burn out very quickly. So burnout, I've seen a lot of clients with burnout or working towards burnout. So it's about taking things in your stride, doing what needs to be done, and, you know, looking at revenue generating activities, but also making sure that you have the right team around you, and notwithstanding the right support squad. So like going to networking events, I have actually around 10 close female and some male entrepreneurs that I could ring up anytime and say, can I talk to you about something? So I have like a support squad there. And I think also having your own coach, or in whatever capacity that would be, even if it was you wanted to be better in the gym, you get yourself a personal trainer. If you want to have a bigger business or a better business, you might get a business coach. Or if you've got things in your personal life going on, you might want to hire a life coach. So having that support squad and that right team around you is another thing that I would say really helps with that. I could go on, but I think there's 3 examples.
Yeah, no, that's great. They are great examples, Vicki. Thank you for sharing. I want to track back to the first one, limiting beliefs. Where do they sort of come from? Is it our upbringing? Is there something else that we experience that kind of leads us to have that belief in our mind about ourselves?
Yeah, well, I would first of all, I would say I'm not a psychologist, so that's my
Yes.
disclaimer. However, I
Thank
have
you.
studied psychology, but what I understand and what I've read about mindset and about, so we are all, when we are raised, we are born and we are raised to have a certain level of conditioning and beliefs that come from our environment. And if you're in an environment where there are things that are said or there's some negative beliefs there, you sometimes often carry those into your adulthood. And there may be some things that you carry on and you don't even know that they're from beliefs from childhood. Excuse me. I'm recovering from a cough there. Excuse
That's
me.
okay. No stress.
Sorry, you can edit that bit out.
It's fine.
So in terms of you may have these beliefs from childhood that actually become limiting beliefs as an adult. So, for example, someone who has lived in the same location for their whole lives may not have the same viewpoint as someone who has traveled the world. And they may be fearful of doing certain things to step way out their comfort zone. Whereas someone like you and I, who actually didn't think twice about moving to Australia, we have maybe a different outlook of going, right, okay, well, let's go and do something and take bigger risks, for example. So I think, but the limiting beliefs, they come from our childhood and they can go into adult life. I've seen people who work on themselves a lot. Now, before I became a coach, I can tell you, I spent 6 years doing on my own personal development journey. I spent thousands. I did all of Tony Robbins courses. I jumped off. I walked through fire 3 times.
Oh,
I
so you
jumped
did
off.
it. Yeah.
I did the Sydney one. I jumped off a telephone pole, huge telephone pole, and then I made some significant changes in my personal life after I made that jump. So, lots of things there. But I think working on yourself is the biggest investment you can ever make to get rid of any limiting beliefs and then to be able to thrive and live your best life you can, because I truly believe everybody has the right on this earth to live their best life on their terms. And if they're not doing it, maybe there's some limiting beliefs they need to really look at and go within.
So, Vicki, if someone is experiencing that, perhaps from our conversation, it's kind of sparked something, what would be the first step someone could take to kind of, I guess, break through those beliefs?
Well, a couple of things. I think the awareness piece is the first starting point. And, I've always often kept a gratitude journal or diary, and I do journal as well. So your limiting beliefs, you can write these things down, but I think getting some support around you, there's loads of classes you can go to. There's various things, personal development things you can do, and really just look around you to see who you can get to help you with those things, coach, whoever it is. But also I think if you're in an environment where it's, I don't want to say toxic, but if you're in, like, for example, if you're in a workplace and it's not lighting you up and it's not giving you, you're not feeling your best and you're not being your best version of you, you need to really get out of that environment and take some time out and stop and reflect and think about where you go from there. If you're in a team where there's lots of negativity, guess what? It's going to rub off on you. If you're working with people, I mean, I know you've inspired me with your gym and your fitness and your journey without drinking. I know you've shared this publicly, but you stopped drinking alcohol about 2 years ago. And
almost 2.5 years. Yeah, it's a miracle.
On a woman's journey now as well. And it's amazing how you feel differently when you start putting really good stuff in your body and you start to fuel yourself with amazing foods, and you can see you're very radiant and you look amazing. But if you're surrounded by people like that who really want to look after themselves and who want to live their best lives, it will rub off on you. So your environment's a really big one that can really cause catastrophic effects if you're not in the right one.
Yes, and I've experienced that as well. And it's interesting with my own personal journey with my health and that, in the beginning it's tough. It's hard to get up at 6, 5, whatever it is, and try and instill that new habit. But what I've found now, I've kind of reached a stage where it comes naturally, So like going to gym Monday to Friday, it's like a non-negotiable. I'm like, oh, if I can't go in the morning, I'll go in the evening. Whereas before, rewind 2 years ago, I'd go at the end of the day, and if I was too tired, I'd be like, oh, I'll go tomorrow, and I would just keep putting it off. and putting it off. And eventually I reached a point where it was just like no more. But yeah, now it's just, you know, if I have a networking event on in the morning, I usually go in the morning. You know, I'll go in the evening, and it's just like if I don't go, I actually feel quite displaced. So it's super important. And if someone had said that to me before I'd had this experience, I'd probably say, you know, whatever. But it actually is so true. You feel so much better, and like you've highlighted, you become so much more conscious of what it is that you're putting into your body as well.
Absolutely. And you know what else as well? I think it's about taking ownership for your own behaviors and yourself. And I think, like, if for example, you're having a bad day, okay, it doesn't mean you're having a bad life. And if you know that you're not feeling your best and you're not going to be the best version of yourself, take yourself off and do something yourself. Don't bring that negativity around other people if you can. And really, if you surround yourself with people who will call you out on that, great, that's brilliant. You know, I think that's something that I've learned. And I know that if I'm not having a good day, I do, where I can, I try to have some discernment about what I would share. But I think but sometimes, you know, you have to let off steam. You have to sort of share what you want to share, but also it's about being human but taking accountability and being able to go, you know what, I'm not being the best version of myself. So guess what? I'm going to go down the gym for 5 times a week and see how I feel after that. You know, maybe that's something I would do for sure.
Yeah. And punch a boxing bag.
Yeah. Well, it's better than doing something else.
Therapeutic.
Yeah.
And Vicki, it sounds like you've had an incredible career. What are some of the challenges you've experienced?
That is a brilliant question, because obviously I've moved away from the UK, and I did have a big network before I left the UK, and I did keep in touch with a lot of people. Now, you move away, you focus your attention, your networks elsewhere. Like, I've got a wonderful network in Australia, and I still, wherever possible, keep in touch. And when I do go back out there, I do for work, or whether it's stay with friends or whatever I'm doing, I do sort of, you've got to nurture your network. One of the challenges I faced, I think when I came back to the UK, I don't think you realize how much challenges around grief can affect you. So that's the first thing. So I think you've got to take some time out to really go within. And also, I think as well, building your brand and marketing, you've got to get out there and network and market your business. And I think the first year coming back here, I just wasn't necessarily, I didn't want to go out and socialize all of the time. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to kind of do my own, I wanted to sort of just take stock, you know, and I think last year was different. I did network a bit more, and this year's more so. But I think it's just having that awareness. So for me, you know, it's taken time. I'm conscious I keep saying, you know, it's a Geordie thing. It's a Newcastle thing. I
love it.
But I would say it's knowing yourself. And I think for me, cutting yourself some slack and going, you know what, just because your last business turned over X amount in that time doesn't mean to say that you have to put these huge parameters and huge sort of goals on yourself. You know, when someone significant dies in your life, it's like you've got to give yourself time to like grieve, you know. So that was probably the biggest thing I think recently. Other stuff I probably won't go into, because like you don't want to bring people down and go, oh my goodness, that's like really sad. But yeah.
No, well, thank you for sharing.
One example for that. But I think that did impact my business, because obviously you know, you look at your bottom line and go, oh, well, I can see the correlation between not getting out networking and my bottom line. You know, that I think was the challenge. So yes, it comes hand in hand.
And especially grief, I think if you don't process it, it kind of will just bubble up inside you, and it can go on for years. And I've seen it with certain people, like it's kind of simmering under the surface. And if you haven't dealt with it, you'll just explode. So it's super important that you do take that time out to process those emotions.
Absolutely.
And Vicki, I hope you don't mind me asking. You don't have to answer if you're not comfortable. I know you shared a story where your stepdad had passed away, and there was a song that came on. Are you comfortable to share? Because I just think it's such a beautiful story. There was
yes.
Okay.
It was my launch in London.
Yes.
My book launch. So I was like all dressed up, makeup done and everything. And then weirdly, just before I was about to leave the house to go and get the cab to the venue in Homegrown in London, and it was a brilliant. I mean, the event was brilliant.
Awesome.
My radio, my Spotify came on. It was so weird. I don't know how, sometimes things happen on your phone. And Spotify came on, and it was the song that was his ringtone. And it was this beautiful song. And I was like, that's weird.
Yeah.
And that was it. But I can't even remember the song now. It was, but the lyrics were beautiful. And I just sat with it for a moment and went, okay. And then went to the event. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's very, very special. And that was your stepdad's one of his favorite songs. Is that correct? Yes, Shem, thank you for sharing. It's such a beautiful story, because I think, we sometimes forget that, I believe that, people are still around us, even though we can't necessarily see them. They're still a part of us as well.
Brought a little tear to my eye.
Oh my gosh, Vicki, I'm sorry. It just shows how real you are. So thank you. Let's change the subject. What was that? Sorry?
We're all human.
Yes, of course. And he's very he's clearly a very special person. And thank you for honoring his life by sharing.
Pleasure.
Vicki, so if there was some advice you could give your younger self, say your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
Can you just give me one moment? Can we just pause it 1 second?
Yes,
ask me that question.
So, Vicki, if there was some advice you could give your younger self, say your 16-year-old self, what advice would that be?
Wow, that is a great question. I so much life experience under my belt since I was 16. I guess the first thing I would say is the advice would be, you go, girl, you go and do it. Just get out there and do it. And don't be afraid. Don't have the courage to go and live your best life, whatever that is. And don't let fear stop you and hold you back, and also being independent is really important, and just being able to go and flourish and do everything you want to do. And I still think there's lots of things I want to do now. It's, I've still got my little bucket list, and I intend to fully do it.
Right. You go, girl.
Absolutely.
Well, Vicki, I mean, I've known you for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years now.
Yeah.
And I think you really do live by that. I mean, I've seen all that you're doing in your life and the places you're going, and, your photos are beautiful, and you really are. It does look like you're living your best life with Will. You guys have a beautiful houseboat, and it's really great to see, because so many of us can speak about living our best life or have all this ambition and never, ever get off the couch. So it's really great to see how motivated you are and how you literally do live your life by that.
Yeah, but I think there's always an opportunity where you've got to take stock. And if there's things in your life that aren't necessarily working as well as they should, you have to acknowledge those things as well. I mean, I went through a phase where I didn't do much exercise, to be honest. And I started thinking, I can tell. I can see that. So, and also, I was thinking, yeah, I do look like I need to sort of rein it in with the food and stop eating fine dining food and start eating healthier. So, but you have to, they're just sort of various examples, but I think you have to take stock. And if things aren't necessarily working out the way they could be, I guess you've got to look at areas, if you like, at any area, and go, well, what could I do to change that and make it better?
Yeah.
But I think for me, what's really important in my life is inner peace as well. And I think that's something that I'm very lucky. Everyone I'm surrounded with are just beautiful people who have my best interests at heart, but also I have their best interests at heart too.
Yeah, it's so important, because I think as humans, as business owners, you do outgrow some of your friends and things change, but eventually I think you do find your tribe, even if it's just a handful of people that like legit wish you well and want to see you be successful and achieve all those great things.
Yeah, I think what's interesting we talk about energy, and I think when you attract people in your life at different times in your life. And I think I've had friends since my childhood, and who I still keep in contact with, and friends who have my best friends who I've known for 20 odd years. Wow. And also friends, I mean, I've got an amazing network of friends in Australia who I've known for over 12 years now, and we speak nearly every other day. So you go on this journey, but then I've had other friends who were we were amazing together along the way, but then things happen and things change, and it could even be working with people as well, and you just either lose touch or you just drift apart, and that's okay to acknowledge that. You shouldn't really hold on to those things and go, well, those are bad memories. You've got to kind of go, they're great memories, and just acknowledge that at that moment in time, that's what you both needed, and that's okay. And that goes for previous relationships or marriages or various other things. It's about going, it's okay now.
Yes. And Vicki, I know you mentioned walking through fire at Tony Robbins, and that's something I've always wanted to do, is go to one of his events. What is the bravest thing you've done?
Oh my goodness. You know what? Well, some people, there's quite a few things actually.
Great.
Like, where do I begin? I mean, the physical things like the walking through fire, stuff like that was pretty damn scary at the time. One with sharks unintentionally.
Braver than me.
In a reef, and someone was shouting, "Oh, there's reef sharks down there," which are pretty okay in Fiji. But I was like freaking out, and I was really scared. But other things like brave things, I guess. Getting quite deep here, but leaving relationships if they haven't worked out, it's been tough.
That would be
leaving. Leaving people or situations, that's probably the toughest thing, the bravest thing, because it's all you know. And then if you walk away from a situation where you're 80% happy, and then it's super brave, because then you always think, why did I do that? I've totally messed up things. But then your life a year later is totally different, and you go, well, no, I didn't do that. It was right at the time. So brave things like that. But I mean, probably lots of other stuff that I've done. But I cured my fear of flying. That's what I was fearful of flying randomly off years ago. I cured that when I did the walked across fire. That was funny. But the funny thing was, because you had this little thing that you do where it's like you count 1, 2, 3, and you have to get your fist and then you walk across it. So I remember getting on the flight from Perth to Sydney back to Perth, and I remember doing the fist thing on the flight. And I was fine.
Amazing.
When I went on a seaplane across Fiji, I'm going, this isn't working. It's not working. Why is it not working? But I think it was a different environment. So that was something. But actually, there is one brave thing that I did, which people might think that's absolutely crazy. I did learn stand-up comedy, and I did 2 stand-up comedy sets in London last year. One last year and one the year before in Leicester Square. I did 2 stand-up comedy routines, and that was absolutely quite scary.
That would have been wow.
It was, although I've performed on stage before in various different ways, that was pretty intense, because you've got to stand there even for 10 or 15 minutes comedy and make people laugh on stage. And it's horrible for people just to stonewall and look at you like you're not funny at all. And so the first one I did my little stage set, and that was actually quite funny. I'm saying this because 4 people in the audience who were there, they were like, yeah, you were in one of the top 4. And I was like, oh, thanks for that. But I went back and did it a second time because I missed a couple of the lessons, because you do get some teaching prior. And a guy called Mike Gunn, who was the lecturer, he was brutal. He'd get you up on a Sunday morning. We did this on a Sunday morning, for 6 weeks, and he'd get you up and go, right, go on, tell me what you've got. And one day he just said, I got up and I did my little stand-up for him, and he went, that was whatever the expletive is. He was like, that wasn't very good. Imagine what he said. And I was like, you're brutal, Mike, you're absolutely brutal. Just wait till I get on that stage. And anyway, we had on the night and stuff. That was fun. But that was, but the second time I did it, I thought it would be funnier. It so wasn't. It was
really?
No. And then I was going to go and do the Edinburgh Fringe after this and put myself out there as a comedian. After that second time, I was like, that was, don't get
I'm done.
I'm done. So probably those were the scary things that I did. That was also, do you know what? It was fun. I had a great time. It was great crack getting up on stage, and I met some amazing people in London, and it was really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, good on you. I don't know if I could be that brave because, like you say, you literally all eyes on you, and you have to make them laugh. Don and I go to the Perth Comedy Lounge in the
Yes,
city,
yeah, been
and
a few times.
yeah, and I have like a few different people, that do different
Yeah.
stand-ups. And there was a girl, I think she was only like 18, and she was, obviously fairly new, but I was like, wow, hats off, because I'm not that brave.
Well, I'm going to set you a challenge live on air.
Yeah.
When I'm
Yeah,
back in
cool.
Perth, I'd love to do a session with you, and we go, well, why don't we go to the Perth Comedy and we actually sign up to do like a 6-week course or whatever it
Oh
is.
my
And we
gosh.
actually do stand-up comedy together, because that'll just make
Yeah.
me go, oh, I've done it twice now. The third time would just be ridiculous, but I'll do it because I'll help you out as well. And if you can get up and do
Yeah.
that, you can do anything. And I think that would
Yeah,
be,
wow.
set you that challenge to do it. Or it doesn't even have to be when I'm there. Do it, just go and do it.
Yeah,
Set yourself.
you've intrigued me now. Everything's saying no, which is usually when I want to say yes. So, challenge accepted.
There you go.
Oh my word.
I love it.
What
I
have
love
I
it.
got myself into?
But you don't have to put it all over social media. I mean, mine wasn't all over social media, but I'll tell you what, if it was, it would be embarrassing. But anyway.
I think my mom-in-law and my mom will probably be the only people that will be there. So
Oh,
we'll
I'd
keep it
come
very
if I was
private.
there. I'd get some girlfriends to go along and sit there and watch it and clap for you.
Yeah, of course. It's amazing. Like, just clap and laugh really, really loud. So, but no, I'll check it out. Like I say, usually
You should.
if there's like a suggestion, even the podcast, like, it was funny how it happened. Don suggested it, and then my advisor suggested it. I was like, no, 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 no. And then my head graphic designer Rudy, he suggested. I was like, right, that's 3 times the universe is kind of giving me the same message. So cool, I'm going to act on it. And yeah, a bit like the stand-up comedy for you, it's been really fantastic, and everyone has just been so like welcoming of the idea and really supportive. So I
Yeah.
guess when we're outside that comfort zone, right, great things happen.
Absolutely. And I remember every weekend before I went to the session, I'd have this feeling of dread going, oh, I've got to go back again, make people laugh. This is just so awkward. It was awkward. It was uncomfortable. But on the other side of fear and awkwardness and being uncomfortable, like anything in life, if you've never done it before and then you come out the other end, it's like, it's a rebirth.
It so is. And I mean, lately I've actually got a few messages from fellow female business owners just saying how much they're enjoying the show. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm still in like that amateur phase where I'm thinking it's terrible and I'm still a work in progress. But it's really great that people are, finding value in the conversations and just really enjoying it. So when you kind of get messages like that, you think, oh my gosh, it's not even about me, it's about being of service to other people.
Absolutely. And I think, you're very humble, but I think the word amateur shouldn't be associated with
Oh,
you. Just
thank
saying.
you. Thank you. You're making me blush, and I'm the color of your jacket.
Oh, there we go. Got a bit of leopard print on though, so
Oh,
have to
love
dress it up a
that.
little bit.
Very, very cool. Well, Vicki, thank you so much for your time. I love our
Pleasure.
conversations as always, and you are such an inspiration. And yeah, I love seeing everything that you're doing, and you're an amazing human.
Thank you. That means a lot from the bottom of my heart. And I want to see your podcast grow and excel. And I'm really happy for you. So thank you, Tracy.
Thank you so much. We'll chat again soon.
Thank you.